What's up, everybody? Tim Anderson here, aka Renfill, sometimes known as the Bearded Dwarven Princess, joined by Luke and Leia, who are passing out after a long and busy morning, killing things outside and who knows what else. Welcome back to another MMORPG Analysis video, and today we are diving into a somewhat controversial topic, which is respecting players' time, and how companies have to be very careful about the way that they design game mechanics in today's day and age, because there are thousands of games to choose from, and the moment that a player starts to feel like the game is abusing them and not respecting their time anymore, they're going to abandon ship and go somewhere else, where so they're going to have that experience that gives them the fun that they are craving. What does that mean, though? What are some of the forms that companies don't respect a player's time? That's the topic of today. Before we get to that point, however, big shout out to all of our supporters here as members of the Adventurers Guild on YouTube, and also our patrons over at the Patreon page, and all the folks who join during live streams and drop super chats and stickers, drop super thanks on videos like these. I am a full-time content creator because of you. I'm a full-time streamer because of you. Thank you so much for supporting. More information at the end on how you too can become a supporter. Don't forget also like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so that you get updates like this as we continue this series and beyond here on YouTube. So, if you have been following our multi-stream adventures recently as we play a lot of old school MMORPGs, this is a topic that has come up frequently in the last few weeks, mostly related to the death mechanics that certain upcoming titles want to put into their games, such as Pantheon: Rise of the Fallen. And we have some members of our multi-stream team and some members of our community who are in favor of hardcore death mechanics and things that punish the player or try to teach the player a lesson somehow. And as we've had these discussions around things such as loot loss, gear loss, level loss, XP loss, so on and so forth, there's this idea that these types of mechanics are needed because they add an element of challenge that MMORPGs are missing. Others on the multi-stream team, myself included, and this is also data that is represented in the industry, and I can absolutely speak to this because I am a game dev. I spent 7 years working on an MMORPG. I've been working on this game for the past couple of years, so I can pull that card out and play that on the table. The data proves that people don't necessarily want to have hardcore all the time. They're okay with it in small doses. A good example of this is the recent success of Elden Ring. But again, Elden Ring is a tiny fraction. It's a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of the overall gaming space. And it had nothing to do with being an MMORPG. So when we start to talk about respecting players' time in an MMORPG, we're talking about things that will make a player frustrated enough to the point where they will quit the game and never come back. One of the ways that that happens is through things like item loss, level loss, um, XP loss, so on and so forth. These are things that do not add to the experience. They take away from the experience. Some can argue that it adds challenge to the game, but challenge doesn't need to take the place of a hardcore death mechanic. Challenge can be implemented into the game in a variety of ways that don't waste the player's time. Let me give you a very sort of broad example of this. And I'm going to use two different older games that we're playing. One is World of Warcraft Classic during the Burning Crusade content, and the other one is Project 1999. Sandwiched in between there is going to be the EverQuest TLP server. Um, in Project 1999, when you die, all of your gear stays on the body and you respawn wherever your bind point is. You respawn, you're naked. On top of that, you lose experience. On top of that, you can lose a level. Some would argue that that's amazing. That adds challenge to the game. It can also add an element of I'm going to rage quit this game because I'm playing the game. Here's a good example because this happened to me last week. I'm playing P99. I'm hanging out with my buddy. I got to go to the bathroom. We're in the Furionovi outpost, completely safe environment, right? So we thought we're by the bank. I go to the bathroom. I come back. My character is dead. What happened? Someone brought a pirate into the outpost, died in front of the bank, and that mob proceeded to then attack me while I was going to the bathroom. I was not in a dungeon. I was not in a place where it wasn't safe to go AFK. I was in town. We had not yet started our adventure. I had only been streaming for about 10 minutes, and I died. I thus suffered XP loss. I suffered. Thankfully, I didn't lose a level, but I came very close to level. And had I not come back to my computer at that time, and had I not had other people around who could then kill the pirate, I would have been in a death loop because I would have respawned right by the bank and that pirate would have still been there and I would have been caught in a death loop and I would have lost a level, potentially more, if I had gone to the kitchen for an emergency or because my wife needed me, or because the cats needed me, so on and so forth. That mechanic, that right there, that death mechanic, does not teach me anything. It does not add to the challenge of the game. What it does is cause frustration. That's not respecting my time. That's an old school mechanic that is before developers knew better. Now, flash forward to World of Warcraft Classic. We have some people in the community who suggest that World of Warcraft Classic's death penalty isn't hard enough because it doesn't punish you when you do something stupid. And I will cry bullshit on that every single day of the week using a recent example of myself and Maduros and I forget what other guildmate was with us. It might have been Wolfen. But we were doing Blackrock Depths. Blackrock Depths, I think is the name of the place. BRD. I'm not intimately familiar because I'm not a WoW guru. It was a place that was expected to take us around 3 hours. It ended up taking us almost 4.5. And the reason was because we're not intimately familiar with the game, so we're going in there as newer players who I've never done it before, and we had a tank who hadn't really done it before, and it was a pickup tank, and he did a great job, but we still died multiple times. I believe it was 5, if not 6 times throughout that entirety of that journey. And what should have been a 3-hour journey turned into a 4.5-hour journey. Every time we died, we had a 10 to 15 minute run back and a recovery time because we had to run back, rebuff, reconfigure ourselves, get back to where we were, and try it again. Okay? The loss of time, because I am a paying subscriber to that game, so time is money because I'm paying a subscription. The fact that I'm not able to make forward progress, the fact that I'm being forced to waste my time with a corpse run, in the sense that I'm spending that time, I'm therefore wasting time with forward progress, that is a penalty. On top of which there is a coin cost for armor. And at some point, if I continue to die over and over and over, my character is going to have to leave the dungeon entirely and go find an armor repair NPC, which is going to lead to more downtime and more of the group not being able to make forward progress. That is a penalty, ladies and gentlemen, and it's a penalty against my time. Time is the number one most valuable resource that I have as a human being. Time is money, and time is valuable. Time is way more valuable than anything else on the planet. When a game wastes my time, I'm going to feel discouraged, and I'm going to go somewhere that doesn't waste my time. Now, in the case of World of Warcraft, we walked away from that and said, okay, what are we doing wrong? How do we fix that? And each time we overcame the challenge. But we still lost time. We still took another hour, hour and a half to do the content that would otherwise have been much quicker. In no way, shape, or form did we also need XP loss, item loss, or level loss stacked on top of that to feel as though we were being penalized for playing poorly or learning the content for the first time. Because there are going to be people up there, well, get good, scrub. If you got good and you learn how to play, you wouldn't die. That is very well a valid point. People who know that dungeon, who know the pulls, who know the spawn cycles, you can run that dungeon and probably never die. But if you're someone like me who's going in there fresh and you're not experienced with the dungeon, there's going to be a learning curve, right? So comparing Project 1999 with World of Warcraft, I'm faced with a decision. On the one hand, if I suffered that type of death in EverQuest in Project 1999, it would not be a 10-minute run back. It would be, oh shit, I'm naked, I have no gear, I now have to either have been smart enough to have put backup gear in my bank and be able to then organize a corpse run back to my camp, or find people to help me. On a low population server like P99, finding other people to help you is an act of futility in some cases. That night, as an example, Kel was looking for a res for my ranger. Never happened. We played 4 hours, no res, no cleric ever wanted to come help us. We asked in the Discord, we asked in the P99 Discord, we asked in game, nothing. Nobody came to help. So people who would argue that, oh, you just need to get a cleric and the cleric can res you, and that's one of the things I love about an old game where you rely upon other people because that's the best way to have community, and when you rely upon the community, it makes the game a funner experience. That only is true when a game is populated. And one of the reasons that Project 1999 is not populated is because no one wants to play an old school MMORPG with hardcore mechanics as their main thing. There are 800 people who play that game on a nightly basis. I've seen 1,200 at max. When you look at that population within the overall MMORPG population, it is a very tiny niche audience who wants to feel penalties for death at that level. The vast majority, and we're talking hundreds of millions of players, do not want that. They want to play a game that respects their time. Forcing me to do a naked corpse run does not respect my time. Forcing me to lose a level does not respect my time. Forcing me to lose experience does not respect my time. Even World of Warcraft Classic, to a degree, does not respect my time because they're still making me do a corpse run, albeit I am in a ghost form, so I'm not naked, but I'm still having to do a corpse run in that game. To that degree, it's also not respecting my time, but a 10-minute penalty is something that I can live with for learning how to play as opposed to being forced to do naked corpse runs. The other component that a lot of people don't factor in is going back to the pirate example that I gave. I was AFK and I was in a safe place, right? I wasn't in a dungeon where I know it's not safe. I hadn't even started the adventure yet. We were forming the group and I had to go to the bathroom before we started. In no way, shape, or form should I be penalized because I had to take a fucking pee. All right? On top of that, we have items like I live in the boonies, right? Since we moved out to the countryside. I lose power and I lose internet on a regular basis because of storms that happen out here because we're in the middle of hurricane season right now and I'm between two coasts. What that means is that very often we'll be in the middle of the dungeon and I will lose power and I will lose electricity. It's happened multiple times during P99. Thankfully, the static group that I have has always been willing to wait. In most cases, my power and internet are back up in a few minutes and I'm ready to go again. But what happens if my power goes out and it doesn't come back for the night? I then have to log in and find that my character is dead because they all had to go back to work. They had to go to sleep that night. You know, my internet went out, my power went out, my wife needed me. There was an emergency with my kids. I had to log out of the game immediately. When I log back in, I'm in the middle of a dungeon and I get immediately attacked by 20 mobs and I'm dead. And now I'm back wherever I was spawned. I'm naked. I lost a level. I lost XP, all because real life got in the way. That's not fair. It's not fair. And I don't care who you are. The argument that the challenge there, those challenging features need to be there to teach players how to play, that's incorrect. You can teach players how to get good. You can add challenge to a game through the mechanics that don't waste their time. Perfect example is going back to the World of Warcraft Classic example. The Ghost Run, that's a sufficient challenge. That's a sufficient penalty for death on top of the coin cost. Now, some people will argue, yeah, but the coin cost becomes insignificant when you get higher level and you have thousands of coin. That's true. That's also the benefit of having worked your ass off to get leveled up in the first place. The perk of being leveled up is that it doesn't sting as much. That's a valid lessening of that feature, that that mechanic. It's a valid lesson to that because you have broken through. You've spent the time and earned a little bit of a discount off of that, as it were. You can also add challenge to a game and without needing to punish the player, because that's the number one thing. The moment you start punishing a player, they're going to go somewhere else because no one wants to be punished when they play a game. We want to have fun. Now, some people would argue again, Elden Ring. It's the one argument. It's kind of like the Well, I don't want to get into that. It's the only one argument that everybody wants to make recently is, yeah, but look at Elden Ring. All these people played Elden Ring. That's proof that people love challenge. No, it's proof that a tiny portion of a much larger audience like a game that's different than other games. And I've watched a lot of people play that game. I have friends who played that game, and everyone had a limit of how long they were willing to play that game before they had to put the controller down and walk away and play something else because it got to the point where they were feeling too challenged, it was too difficult, it was penalizing them too much, and they had to step away. Now, they would always come back to it. Point in case, I come back to P99 frequently with friends. I would never play that game alone, but I do play it with friends. Not because I want to feel frustrated or feel challenged, but because I have friends who enjoy that experience and enjoy that world, and I like to play with my friends and I like to play games with my community. So we do things that the community is going to enjoy together. But if I was a solo player, in no way, shape, or form would I play P99 on its own. Would never do it. That game is ridiculously old school, old fashioned, and those mechanics have no place in the 21st century. I get 30 to 50 free games every single month between like GOG, Steam, Epic Games, you name it. I get games for free all the time. My Xbox Game Pass, PlayStation Plus. I have so many games I can play. The last thing that I want, and the last thing that most players want, is a game that doesn't respect their time. So when we're starting to talk about MMORPGs that are up and coming, the number one challenge that they have facing them is how to retain the audience, because box sales don't mean anything anymore. It's about, can you retain the player base? And the numbers have shown again and again and again that you cannot retain an audience if players are feeling as though they are being abused and their time is being wasted. So, while it's okay to look back with rose colored glasses at some of these old school mechanics like naked corpse runs, XP loss, and XP debt, there are far too many situations where that death penalty penalizes people for something that's completely out of their hands, going AFK to go to the bathroom, needing to log out because your wife had an emergency, your power going out, your internet going out. I could continue to give examples of why that's a failed mechanic. And it's not anything to do with challenge. You can challenge the players through other gameplay mechanics by making the mobs hard, by having great scripted encounters, by having, you name it. We could list 100 different features here that are challenging gameplay mechanics without needing to waste a player's time. So remember, number one most important rule, don't waste the player's time, because we will go elsewhere and play a different game altogether and leave you with a server that only has 800 to 1,000 people playing on a nightly basis. Food for thought. Again, thanks to all the people who are supporters of the channel via memberships, super thanks, super chats, and stickers, and all the folks who are over at Patreon. If you want to support the channel as well, you can click on the links below, show up during a live stream, and do all those good things. Don't forget to check out all the social media links, like, subscribe, follow, drop your comments below. We'll see you in the next video.